Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is just the kind of painting that I do in my class. And if you've been in my class, you'll obviously know. But I just want to explain a couple of things. That the overall process is called alla prima. Means all at once or from the outset in Italian, and it's just a way of painting. It's the most dynamic way of painting. You get your painting done all in one sitting, and it makes for one very exciting paintings, I suppose, and two, the opportunities for changing things around are really sort of very, how would you say, not obvious, but the potential is there, I suppose. And once you get it down, the process, it informs all your paintings. So it's the best way to learn how to paint, in my opinion. Everyone has their own sort of way of painting. I mean, there's an infinite variety of ways of painting, and you know, the results are often absolutely beautiful. But alla prima is the one that I like to do. I mean, it's not the only way I paint either, because I often do paintings that take months. So it's not necessary to actually do alla prima, but I think alla prima is the best way to start out, I suppose. And just to so I can use all the equipment and see how it all works, in terms of a live stream. I'm going to just go through a few paintings and talk about them, and hopefully I'll get some feedback from you. I'm just hopefully Mary, you're there. Let me see. It would be great if you actually gave a comment. Let's have a look. Comments there. Right. Okay. So I'm going to change the camera. All right. And here we go. So I just chose this as an example of, I suppose, the most basic thing that I do in my class, which is a single object, and just painted simply a single object because it doesn't take too long. You can get it all finished in one class of 2.5 hours. Look, it could be a pear, it could be a glass object, it could be silver. I mean, those are the general sort of things that I use in my class. And I use them in an order of complication as well, over 6 weeks. So you go through the process entirely in one class, and then in the next class you go through the process entirely again, all the way through the 6 weeks. And I find that that way there's a much quicker learning curve for people, because they're doing the process at each event, going through the whole thing again, and rather than doing 6 weeks of one painting, which I've seen many other classes do. So that would be a good example, I suppose, of one of my class paintings. And that would have been done in about, for me, I'd probably get that done in about 45 minutes. And very, very basic. It's painted. It hasn't. I've not applied a kind of a new style to it or anything. It's basically a realistic painting, as kind of realistic as I could make it. And same with this one, for example. It's a simple rendition of a simple composition. I've done nothing with the background or the foreground to make it any more interesting. It was a grey background, so I painted it grey. It was a chili pepper and an aubergine. I tried to make them as realistic as possible, I suppose. But once you've sort of gone through that process and you know how to do this, and you know how to make a convincing rendition of an object, you can move on to start making them look a bit more interesting. So let's have a look at these two, which I did a couple of weeks ago. These are two class demonstrations. There was a third one because I've got 3 classes per week, but somebody bought one of them. So I painted the same silver jug 3 times over 1 week of classes. Okay, these are both A5 size. And once I actually got the rendition correct, for the demonstration, which took about half an hour, and everyone went off to do their paintings, I went back to the paintings, and I kind of finished them off. I think the best example perhaps is this one. I brought everything together, and I started to bring this colour, the colour of the foreground, into the background, and the back colours, some of the background into the foreground, which is kind of would be not an obvious thing to do, but a natural thing to do, because everything is reflective, and so if you bring this into here and this into here, it kind of lends a liveliness to the painting, a more, I think, a more convincing and pleasing result. So there's those, and I also kept my strokes obvious. So if you go close, I'm not sure how well this camera will pick this up, but if you come in and let it focus, you can see the strokes. I didn't blend them. I'm not a big fan of blending colour, because it kills paintings. So last week, in fact, I did sunflowers. So let me go through this was the first one. Okay. So 3 days, 3 separate classes of painting sunflowers. And in this case, again, I did the demonstration. I took it to a certain level. And then I made the coffee, and everyone got their coffee, and I went back to painting it, and I finished it off. And I made sure that I had plenty of texture, because texture is a part of painting too. And when you blend, you tend to flatten everything out. And for me, part of the joy of painting is not sort of creating an absolute reality. It's to tell a story, and also to put the extras in, the intangibles. For example, brushwork and texture is a very important variable in painting. So I think it's nice to have it apparent to the viewer. So there you go. You can see the brush strokes in there. Let it focus. Okay. So there was one day. The second day was Wednesday evening, and I did the same group of flowers again. And once again, I left in the texture. And I was a bit more adventurous with the colours in the background. Now, obviously, this is inspired by Van Gogh, who obviously painted loads and loads of sunflowers. And each time he painted them, he did them a different way, different colours. He didn't conform exactly to reality. But, he just painted. He painted. I think there was a letter from his brother Theo to somebody else, talking about sort of him trying to get more colour into his paintings. It wasn't about sunflowers. It was about some other work that he was doing. But there were landscapes. But he was intentionally pushing himself to have more colour and joy in his work, I suppose. And so, after you've done the initial scoping after the painting and doing your blocks and putting in details and everything, you can take a painting forward. Okay, so that's the next one. And the third day, last week, was this one. So once again, I did the painting out as a normal alla prima painting, trying to get it reasonably accurate, and then I went on to add a kind of a texture and a liveliness to the painting. So you can see it in the texture there. Texture's not quite as obvious because it's a light colour. There you can see some of the texture there in the flower heads. There. It's trying to focus. There. So you can actually, turn a painting into something, give it an additional dimension. And you see, I even left out paint, so there's you can see the drawing come through here. I think that's a very nice way to approach a painting as well, is to not paint certain areas. So that's something else you can do. These are all strings to your bow. These are, you know, ways to get your painting to be more personal. So let's try another one here now. This is another demonstration painting from the class from a few months ago. And this one, all the same things apply, and then I used a palette knife to add colour, and that way you get plenty of texture. Now, it wasn't a palette knife like this one. This is a bit too long. I suppose I used a more diamond-shaped one, a smaller palette knife. But I applied the paint with the palette knife, and that gives texture naturally, because you can't paint accurately with a palette knife. No, well, certainly not at this size. But paintings are meant to be viewed from at some distance, and you know, the optical illusion is that all those strokes and kind of mosaic-like quality just combine together to give the illusion of whatever it is you're painting. And let's move on, continuing with the Van Gogh theme. Here's another good example. This was painted from a photograph. The idea was to use those kind of pointillistic postmodern, post-impressionist strokes to show, you know, to create the picture, to create the illusion that there's a landscape there. And I deliberately didn't paint in some areas, so you can see the wash coming through. The areas that would normally be quite flat colours are just done with downward strokes. I think the concept of this painting was to do a painting in the wrong colours with downward strokes all the way. So all the strokes are kind of vertical. And it gives a painting a dimension that just painting flat colours won't give you. So let's see if I can bring that up close. So do post a comment or a question. I know there seem to be two people watching. Obviously, I can't sort of see exactly what's going on. Let me just change it so that, yeah, you can see me there, being partially hidden by my microphone. Yeah, so do ask a question, because I'm trying to see how this all works. Because this is the first live stream of this nature that I've actually done. So let me just go back here. Just bear with me while I look at some of these things where I could have people. No, okay, no questions yet. It doesn't matter what the question is. It really doesn't at this stage. I'm trying to learn this process. So switch back to there. Where am I? Yeah. Maybe another way of doing it is to write a comment. If you're watching on Facebook, is write a comment. So that was one. Oh, and just one more thing about this is is to underline the point that I did. I mean, that field was a yellow field from memory, because look, here's another version of it. I did previous to that. The field was like a field of corn or wheat. And I decided to actually change the colours, because the colours matter less than the tone or the style or the story that you're telling, which takes a while for people to get on board with, I think. Monet was another artist that we were looking at. This was the term before last, actually. So I was looking at Monet's paintings and how he painted. Now, he would often cross-hatch with his paintbrush. So he'd be doing strokes horizontally and vertically. He would also change colours around as well. Not as obviously as Van Gogh, but you know, the sky was a blue sky because I used a photograph, because everyone was painting the same thing. So I found a photographic reference of a Mediterranean scene, which is the kind of environment in which Monet painted very often. And I used the cross-hatching strokes. I changed the colours around. and the photograph, and photographs are often sort of a lot colder than, even if they're sort of paintings of warm scenes, they're often colder than you would like them to be. And so your job is to actually, the story of this scene would be to make it warm, to amp up the heat. So hence the pinks and the golden colours and the red in the foliage. The rocks here are redder than they are. So you amp things up just to make them more interesting, more engaging, and to tell a story, because you're not recreating a photograph. I think beginners often make the mistake of trying to faithfully copy the photograph reference that they have, and it's frustrating two ways. One, if you can't match it, it's frustrating, naturally. But if you can match it and you recreate the photograph, all you've done is recreate the photograph. So that's a cul-de-sac of art too. So your job should be to actually change it. Put in things like more how would you say, more descriptive colours. Tell the story more. Whatever you think that story is. Allow the strokes to be more obvious. Put in interesting factors in your painting. It almost doesn't matter how incompetent your painting is, as long as you did it with the right intentions, which is like all art, really. So let's see if you can see the texture in that. That seems to be showing quite well there. Okay, so there's that one, and here we go. Here, this is a small one that I did of an Italian scene. And this was sort of another sort of exploration of Van Gogh. So all the strokes are obvious. Let's bring it up here. All the strokes are obvious. The colours are not the so-called correct colours. We've departed from the photographic reference. We've made it more vague but more descriptive. Lots of individual textures. Don't forget to use plenty of paint so the painting flows. And there's that one. And let me try one more if I can. Oh, yes, here's an interesting thing. Let me just grab that and put that one there. These were paintings, or sorry, how would you say, poplar trees. Those vertical trees that they have in all over the Mediterranean world, lining roads. They're poplar trees in Lombardy. A photographic reference, of course, and done 3 times during the week. So that was the first one. Yes, this was the first one. Okay, so you can see the texture and the strokes. It looks fruitier on screen than it does in real life, I think. And you can see the way the skies are multicoloured skies. I think I love those multicoloured skies that were done by all the impressionists. So I endeavour to get colours into them. They're cools and there are warms. All the blues are cools and the pinks are cools, but there are warm pinks as well. Yeah, you can see. Well, in fact, in painting terms, that's a pink as well. Maybe it might not be coming up on screen very well, but that would be a pink. Then I redid it, I think the following evening for the class. So put that there. These are all on paper, by the way. It's just it's an easy way for me to carry the paintings around afterwards. Oh, hello, Catherine. How are you doing there? You love the colours. Yeah, the colours are important. The colours are a description that you're leading the viewer. So don't be afraid of brightening up your colours, not mixing them up too much so that that they turn to mud. Use colour. It's not as important as tone, but it does add joy to your painting. And don't sort of go down the cul-de-sac of reality. Decide what the story that you want to tell is, and then go for it. And don't base your entire career on one painting, if it fails or not. You just move on. That's the joy of Alla Prima, by the way. You're not spending the rest of your, uh, 10 weeks class, series of classes, doing the one painting. So you can sort of, you can move on and get rid of the painting that you don't like, or paint over it, or whatever. But don't do it, don't just discard your paintings because you feel that they're wrong. Keep them for a while because they might grow on you. That's the other thing. And I don't think I've ever sold a painting to anybody that I thought that was the one that I was going to sell. They always choose something different. So you can't tell what people like anyway if you're going to be into selling paintings. This is the same scene. This is the same photograph reference, and I decided to just change the the sky because I'd done it blue. I'd done it blue twice, and I just wanted to change it around. The mountains, instead of being pink, are now purple. So that's it. It's kind of slightly more advanced way of painting. So when you've gone through the process many times, you hopefully, because this is the intention of it all, is you get bored by it because you've been doing it so often. And when you're bored by something, you try and change it up. You deliberately change your approach. You put in a variable and see what happens, because that's what art is. It's about play and experimentation, and some people are more apt to do that than others, but you should always do it, and always keep your sketchbook, and you can play in there as well, and nobody has to look at your sketchbook. You don't have to show it to anybody. It can be just your private thing. You can do all the mistakes you want and that. And that brings me to the end of this particular session. And I hope you had a good time. Do join my website, www.McSherryStudio.com. You can sign up for the newsletter there. And keep an eye out for these live stream podcasts. I did this one in the morning, mainly just so that I could work through some of the processes, because I'm learning this as much as anyone else is learning how to paint. This is like a whole new thing to me, and when I actually do this regularly, it might be an evening thing, possibly on Fridays. But let me know what you think. Tell me when you'd be available to look at things. Tell me what you want to hear about, and if I can sort of answer your questions, I will. So listen, paint oils, paint small, paint often, and I hope to see you in the next live stream podcast. Cheerio.